Hello everyone, my name is Khan, and today I will show you how to do a loading GUI. So the first step to make a loading GUI is to make a local script in Replicated first. It's the first thing that will happen pretty much when you start the game, and we will call the script loading game. I mean, you can call it pretty much everything you want. I will call it loading game. So now we have a script. For now we're not going to touch it. We're going to make a GUI so that we can see whenever the game is downloading and stuff. So what I recommend doing right at the start is enabling ignore GUI inset. So once it's done, it's like the top bar and it ignores it. It's what we want. And then we will create frame. Of course, please call your GUI something like loading GUI. It's important to rename everything. And we will call the new frame we created background. Okay, so now we have a background. What we want to do now is change its size, and we want it to be 1, 0 on X and Y. So why do I say 1 on the first? So the first is the scale. It's basically this is 0, this is 1. That's pretty much what it is. And the offset is like pixels. So what we need for that is scale. And now we can put background color to black. Okay, so now we have our background. Now what do we need is a text, so you can actually tell when it's downloading. So to add a text, you just press the plus button and search for a text label, and we will rename it to %text because it will show the game loading percentage. So first thing we're going to do is put the background transparency to 1 and put the Z index to 2. Basically, what is the Z index? For example, if this is 1, it's going to be below 2. So this will be on top of the background. So for the size, what we want is something like that, but pretty much in absolute size or scale. So for me, I will do 0.2. It's basically 0 here, 1 here. And on the y-axis, I'm going to do 0.05. Alright. So now the anchor point for that, we're going to say 0.5, so that when we say the position is 0.50, 0.50, it's going to be right in the middle. But we don't want it to be right in the middle, we want for it to be a bit below. First I'm going to change the text color so you guys actually can see what I'm doing. Call it it's text 0%. Okay, so now you can see the text. I scaled it. When you press it, it scales to the actual size of your text label. So now that it's done, let's change the X position to be something like 0.8. Oh wait, wrong position. To be something like 0.8. Alright, so now we have our text and our background, so we have pretty much everything we need. So now we will move the loading GUI onto loading game. So now the loading GUI is now a children of loading game. So now we will open once again our script and we will remove this, and instead we will say local content provider equals the game, and then we need to get the service, and the service name is actually content provider. So now we have the service content provider. What it does is pretty much load things, to preload things. I don't know how to say it for people who doesn't really know how to script, but it's what we need for it. So now we need to say what is the GUI to get the percentage. So the GUI is the children of the script. So it's script, it's local loading GUI. This is the name of the local. So when we need to call the loading GUI, just say loading GUI instead of script.loading GUI. And it's the script.loading GUI. Next thing we need to do actually is change the parent of the loading GUI, because otherwise we can't really see it. So the parent of the loading GUI needs to be the player. So how do we get the player, you may ask? Well, actually, because it's a local script, we can get the player locally. So let's say game.players, this gets players, then the name of the player, since it's the local player, it's local player, the player who plays the game. And then we wait for a child, because the game isn't fully loaded yet. And if it's not fully loaded, we can't get the value. So what we want is the player GUI. It's where all of the GUIs are, and it needs to be here to be shown on the screen. Alright, so now we have the parents. So let's see if it works. Just a bit of loading. Alright, so now we can see the GUI when we hit play. So this is perfect. So now we're going to say game.loaded. It fires an event whenever the game is finished. And then we do wait, so that it waits until it's finished. So now we need to know what do we load. So local content to load. Of course, if you want, you can change the names. For me, I will just name them that. So we want to load everything in workspace, but it's not really how we do it. What we need to do is get every descendants and not every children. The difference between descendants and children. For example, loading GUI is a children of loading game. But when we do get children, it only gets children, like loading GUI. It doesn't get background because it's a descendant. Because it's inside loading GUI. What we need to get is descendants, so it gets children and what is inside them. So once we do that, we get the children. Now something a little bit harder. We want to know what is the total to load, or you can just say total. So we do hashtag content to load. So basically what this means, it actually gets every children inside workspace. So it gets every children of content to load, which is workspace. And then you know how many there is to load. And now we will do a little loop, which we'll really need. So what we do is for I is the current value, like the one it's doing at the moment, and v is the value it's currently doing. So this is a count, like if it does one part it will say 1, and this is actually the part you can change it, like for example part that size, but you can't with this with the I because it's pretty much a number. So for that we do in pairs, and then we need to say what do we need to the loop to be, so it's content to load, so it will wait until everything inside that is loaded, and then it will stop the loop. So for I, be in pairs content to load, do, and then you press enter, and it put a little end here. And now what we need to do is to get content provider and say preload async, and what we want is actually a table which is named v, the current one you're doing, and so it will preload that async that it's currently on for that loop. And now we got that, but what we need now is actually we want to show how many percent it is currently at. Of course it won't be as smooth like a real loop. What I mean by a real loop is, like, for example, while true do, for example, value plus 1 or something like that. And if you do that it will be smooth, but it won't work because it's not really, if you do that basically it's not really a loading GUI because it doesn't wait for stuff to be loaded. So for now what we want to do is get the loading GUI, the background with which is the children, and then we want to get the percent text, point text. So now we're changing it to percent text. So what we want it to be is I slash total. Basically it's I divided by total, which will give a percentage. But right now the problem that we will have is that total is pretty much 1, because it's a value 0 to 1, so total is 1. So what we need to do is times 100, and we put parentheses on C's to do it first. And then we want to show the percentage logo, so we do ... and quotes. And I forgot to do that, I think. Yes, parentheses again. And then we say percentage. And it's pretty much done. What we need to do now is actually say that it's done when it's done. So we go outside of the loop, because this is after the loop's end, and we say that the percent text is actually down because it's downloading. So now we wait maybe 1 second, and this is probably cosmetic. For example, we can destroy it right away, but I like to do a little cosmetics on things, so we'll just say repeat loading GUI dot background dot percent text dot text transparency. So this will change the text transparency, obviously. So we don't want to do just plus, for example, 05. No, we want to do plus or plus equals, that it changed the value, because plus doesn't work like that. it's not a number, and we want to change the value. Not a number, but I mean the number is a value actually. So of course something important that you should always do when you do a loop is to put wait. For this one you don't need, because it's not always the same loop. It's important to add wait. And what we want to do too is not just change the background person text, but you want to change actually you want to change the background transparency too. Background transparency equals plus equals .05, and now we need to say until what. So we want to do it until the person text transparency is equal or superior to 1. So superior or equal to 1. And once that's done, you can actually destroy the loading GUI. And that's pretty much it. So now if we look at it, you can see that the percentage will show here. But wait, you may have noticed, but there is point, like for example 005 on things. But obviously we don't want it to be like that. So what we're going to do is go back here to change person text in the loop and say math that round, so it will round the number to a full number. So for example, if it's 1.6, it's going to be 2. It's just to be a bit more good looking. Alright, so now one thing that you may want to do is actually to remove the default loading screen. And so for that we need to say, before everything else, script.parent remove loading screen. And basically, if you want to know what the script.parent actually is, it's very simple. Just say print script.parent and it will say in the output or when you press F9. So now it will remove the default loading screen for this. It says it here. It's replicated first. And you can change things in replicated first. And so that's it. That's how we make a loading screen. I hope you enjoyed, guys. It was great making this video. If you want more tutorials on how to do things, you can always say so in the commentary, or you can always leave a like, so I know that you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye!